Big V Property Group owns and operates retail properties with a focus on Sunbelt locations. Big V is family owned with an 80-year history in the business. Today, we're catching up with Big V's chairman and CEO, Jeffrey Rosenberg, to talk about the past and future of Big V Properties. Live from Las Vegas, it's Where We Buy. That's right, you're listening to Where We Buy, the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL. Today we're recording live from the JLL booth at ICSC Las Vegas. Welcome, Jeffrey Rosenberg, to the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
For folks that aren't familiar, I mean, how would you describe your portfolio?
So our portfolio is, as you mentioned, mostly in the Sunbelt parts of the United States, and we focus on large format open air centers that are dominant in the marketplace that we operated in. And so we like Texas and the Carolinas and Arizona and sort of the Smile States, as we call them. We have focused on that area over the last 10 years or so.
Okay. And so you're based out of Charlotte, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Has that always been where the headquarters are?
No. The headquarters started way back when my grandfather started the business in 1942 in a little town called Florida, New York. So I'll tell you the story if it's of interest.
Yes, please. First of all,
okay.
Florida, New York is the place.
Yes.
1942 is the year.
Correct.
All right, I've got it in my head. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so now fun fact. The name Florida came about because the first settlers there, when they looked at the area, it was full of flowers.
Oh,
and so they said, all right, it's full of flowers. It looks like Florida, the state of Florida. And so it ended up being Florida, New York. And around Florida, New York, I think it's approximately 8% of the onion growth in the United States is grown there. So it's all black dirt. So it's all very rich soil. And my great-grandfather was a bootlegger. So
I did not expect you to say that.
Yep. So, during those times, he was quite the haberdasher person running around doing various different things, including being an onion farmer, a bootlegger, and had a couple of different retail establishments, so it was all over the place. My grandfather, in 1942, wanted to open up a corner grocery store. And so he went to where my grandmother's family was, Florida, New York, and opened up a little corner grocery store. But he decided that, there were a lot of corner grocery stores. So really, the best way to be successful was to differentiate himself in the marketplace. And so he did that by having fresh fruit, vegetables, fish, meat on a daily basis. And so what that meant was every morning at 3 a.m., he would get up, he would drive to New York City, he would buy all those items in the markets, he would come back to the store for the store opening at 7 a.m., and then he would stay in the store till 11 p.m. And so he did that 6 days a week for 15 years. Yeah, wow. So a long period of time before he opened up a much larger 30,000 square foot supermarket down the road. Now, there may be folks out there that have an earlier crowdsourced funding story than I do, but my grandfather raised the funds to build the supermarket by selling 6% savings bonds to all of his customers coming in the store, and that raised the capital for him to build his first big store. And so I'd like to hear if anybody has heard of anything earlier in terms of crowdsourced funding, but I believe that was probably one of the early examples of crowdsourced funding.
Wow. So just the regular customers, he said, hey, buy some 6% bonds and you'll, fund the building of the new store.
That's right. That's right. And in the 80s, when he paid off the last 6% bond, I just remember, him being really excited that they were out there, and people kept them as mementos. So over the years, as the company grew, nobody wanted them to be paid off. They kept those bonds as mementos, and he paid off the last one in the mid-'80s.
So it started out with the grocery store. Was that called Big V at the time?
So the grocery store was called Victory Market.
Okay.
Everybody asked me, how did we get to Big V? So the Victory Markets was open as a larger supermarket format. And then he got sued by another company in upstate New York who had the name Victory Markets. And so he renamed it Big V. And that's where the Big V name came from. Although, if you ask my grandmother, she'd say it was from me because my name is Viola. So, but that's where the name came from.
Okay. And where was the transition from being a supermarket to retail real estate?
All right. So we always owned retail real estate. So the way my grandfather grew the business and raised capital was that he and my grandmother would drive around, look at all the neighborhoods. Now, this is sort of pre-market research. So this is how he did his market research to build a supermarket and a shopping center. So he and my grandmother would drive around, drive all the various neighborhoods, take a map, figure out where the center of those neighborhoods were, circle it, and then my grandfather would go ahead and buy up a large amount of acreage. He would build a supermarket and a shopping center, which we would own. And then he would sell the remaining land off to the other retailers coming in because of the draw of the supermarket. And he would use that capital to then do the next shopping center. And so we grew the company over a period of many years. He did over a period of many years by, moving capital and just buying up all this real estate, building the shopping center and the supermarket, and then using the capital from the excess land to acquire the next one and build the next one.
At its peak, how many Big V supermarkets were there?
So we had 34 supermarkets in the Northeast. In the 50s, we joined a co-op called Wakefern Food Corp. And Wakefern Food Corp stores operate under the banner of ShopRite in the Northeast. And so ShopRite's in, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. I think there's even some maybe in Florida, but there's sort of focused on the Northeast, or a couple hundred ShopRite stores. Because it's a co-op, most of those stores are owned by individual owners. At the time we sold the company, we were the largest member of Wakefern Food Corp with the largest number of ShopRites.
What time are we to the point now where you joined the company?
No. We're not there yet.
Okay.
But we sold the company, and we sold the operating company in 1987. We sold some of the shopping centers that were anchored by the supermarkets at that point in time. We kept a host of other centers that we owned as well, and we ran those and continued in the business of owning the supermarket anchored shopping centers. And then in the late 90s, I was asked by Dad to come in and see how we could grow our portfolio over a long period of time. And when I came in, it was in the late 90s. We owned, I don't remember, 10 or 12 centers. And I proceeded to actually liquidate some of the centers that we had in the Northeast and look to redeploy our assets in other parts of the United States.
So that was in 1997 that you joined?
1997, okay. I came on board, yeah. 1987 is when we sold the operating company.
Gotcha. Okay. So compared to investing then, when you first came on board, late 90s, to today, 2025, are there big differences in how property investing is done, do you think?
Oh, there's a vast number of differences. First of all, you have to, even when my grandfather started, he developed a way to create a competitive advantage for himself to be able to grow, his chain. Because when he started, nobody had fresh items for sale, right? They were all several days old, delivered by warehouse trucks and delivery services. So he created this competitive advantage without any market research, without knowing how many people were around him that could actually buy, and without really understanding if there was a market for what he was doing. And so he created this, but it took 15 years for that concept to become successful enough that he was able, after the end of 15 years, to raise the capital and open a large supermarket, a large format supermarket. And a large format supermarket at that point in time was 30,000 square feet.
Right.
Yeah. So, small in today's environment, but large because at that point in time, A&Ps were 15,000 square feet. So this was a much bigger store than the A&Ps of the time.
And so back then, your father was building centers. Today, you're acquiring centers. Do you guys develop it all today?
We do.
Okay.
We do some development. I think, you talk about the differences between when I first started and when my grandfather was in the business and my dad in the business and to today. So, before my grandfather just used to drive around. Today, we have all sorts of tools to help us with demographics, traffic flows. But in terms of where we've gone today, I think, we continue to use what we've learned over the many years to drive success in our business, which is, core values in our business. So, for example, my grandfather was a tough individual, but fair. And if you asked anybody who worked for him at that point in time, they'd say he was, tough but fair. But funny story, tough but fair meant different things to different people. So when we used to go on vacation, and my dad and we would go on vacation, and this is the early 80s, mid 80s, my dad would get a call from his assistant saying, hey, your father have fired about, 15 people. And so you need to take care of this. And my dad would say, tell them they're not fired. I'm going to come back and then we'll take care of it. But it was the mentality at that point in time of, if you didn't do it my way,
yeah,
then you weren't going to do it at all and you're fired.
Right.
And so every time my dad went on vacation, my grandfather would fire a bunch of people.
Oh my God.
And, he didn't like what the grocery department was doing. He didn't like what the store manager was doing. And, he'd basically say, I don't like what you're doing. You're fired. And so,
oh my gosh.
So my dad would come back and unfire everybody and take care of whatever the management issues were. But, at that point in time, it was, if he thought his way was the best way. And so he was, what we consider a do it, damn it, do it manager, right? So you do it my way, you do it as fast as possible. Otherwise, there's no other way. Whereas my dad, when he joined the company, professionalized the management, added all sorts of controls and professional management layers, and really took the company to the next level. But today, we use those core values that my grandfather started. So things like, your word is your bond and family first, where when you say you're going to do something, we often, make sure that we do what we say we're going to do. And so if we don't think we can do it, we try not to commit to doing that item. And that carries on today. And it's a very important part of our family and our organization and our culture.
So, forgive me if you've said it, but how big is your portfolio now?
We have about $2.5 billion, about 10 million square feet or so.
Okay.
And we've grown that organically over the last, 10, 15 years. We started, when I joined the company, I think we had, I don't even remember how many centers, but I didn't buy a lot of centers when I first joined. I sort of looked at the market. At that point in time, it was the early 2000s. I thought that real estate was relatively expensive, so I sold a bunch of assets. And then I actually didn't start buying assets until 2009.
Oh, good time. Good time to do that.
Yeah. It was a very good time to do that. But I kept capital available, and I waited until I felt that it was an opportune time for buying. And, 2009 actually became a really good opportunity as we moved forward into the early 2010s and into the mid 2015s and on.
Do you think 2025 is an opportune time to buy?
I'd love for 2025 to be an opportune time to buy. I mean, at one point in time, we were acquiring about $400 million to $600 million a year in real estate assets. But it's been more difficult these last couple of years because of the high cost of capital, the lack of liquidity in the market, the lack of transaction volume. I mean, we've all seen a drop in transaction volume, although this year I think it's a little bit higher. But we're still finding it a struggle to acquire assets. So this year, we've bid on many assets, and that pricing has gotten more aggressive than we can pay for the returns that we need. We use capital that is used to an IRR return in the mid-teens, right? So now you're acquiring assets in an environment where the IRR return is in the low teens, in the high single digits. I mean, it's much different than it was just a couple of years ago. And so, that makes it more difficult for us to acquire premium assets, which is what we like to own. Like most of the assets that we've acquired are premium, high quality assets in really strong markets across the southern parts of the United States, as we've discussed earlier. And we're finding it difficult to acquire those assets now.
Yeah. I was just looking at your website as I was kind of thinking about talking with you, and there's a new press release about the Rim in San Antonio, where you have all 5 TJX concepts in one center, and this only happened there's only like one other center in the U.S. that has Marshall, Sierra Trading, Home Goods, HomeSense, and TJ Maxx all in one center. How did that come together? You just have a really good relationship with TJX?
No, well, yes, that helps because we deliver. So one of the benefits of our team, so we're completely vertically integrated. We do everything in-house, and when we commit to a lease and a delivery time frame, we deliver. And that's part of the benefit, right? So if a tenant signs a lease with us, they know that we have committed to a time frame where we can deliver the product. And that's reputation that we have out in the marketplace. But that fact that we have 5 TJXs is really a function of the quality of the asset that's in San Antonio.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that asset in San Antonio, I think, is the number 1 trafficked open air center in the state of Texas. And it's 1 million square feet. I think it's over 2 million square feet with the residential that we don't own, plus the other parcels that are sort of part of the ecosystem of that shopping center. But it's a fantastic center called the Rim, as you mentioned, in San Antonio, and it's been a really strong performer for us.
How long have you owned the Rim?
I want to say we bought in 2021.
Okay.
I think. We bought another center called The Avenue, which is a similar in concept, and that's outside of Nashville in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We bought that in 2020. And those were 2 of close to our biggest purchases at that point in time.
When you're thinking about a market or when you're thinking about a property to potentially purchase, how much do you think about the market that the property's in, the city, the folks that live there, all that stuff? How much of that thinking goes into it?
We do. That's a very big part of our due diligence as we look at various markets. And so we are one of the smaller operators that have a market research team. So as we mentioned, Michael Jordan, who works for us as our director of research, has been on your podcast, and he's a very important part of our research in the acquisition process of shopping centers, because he's given us a list of, let's say, 25 target markets that we want to be in. And they may not be Dallas, they may be in Wichita, Kansas, or they may be in other small markets. But we use market research very strategic to help guide us in the acquisition of the various assets. And so we're probably one of the smallest owner and operators of shopping centers to have market research. Because, if you ask anybody who comes on here that's sort of our size, they'd be like, market research? We use JLL. What are you talking about?
Right. It's my coworkers who are their market research.
Yeah.
Right? Kudos to you as a researcher. Thank you very much, because of course, I believe that everybody should have a researcher on their team. It's a different skill set, that they bring to the table.
It is. And we've started various programs. Like, we run a monthly column called Insights on the Margin.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is create a contrarian view in the marketplace that gives our point of view of what's going on, and sort of, from a unique perspective of market research, data from our centers. We use lots of data. Many of you have heard of Placer AI. Many of you use that in your business. We make extensive use of Placer. We make extensive use of other market research materials. And we look to create unique viewpoints in the marketplace to be able to help us achieve success. And we communicate that on a monthly basis.
Yeah. That I know that I'm on your distribution list, so I get all of those, and they're always so much fun to read. You've been with Big V for 29 years, is that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
Well, let me correct you. I've been with Big V for 29 years, but really in this business, since I've been growing up. Because I don't know about you, but I had to push carts when I was 14 years old in the rain at the supermarket. I worked in every single department in the supermarket. I worked in every single department in the company we owned, and so I went through that whole thing. It's really funny. My younger brother, when he was 7, he was running around the supermarket, and he was in the deli, and he decided that he wanted to cut deli meat for customers. Oh. Yeah. So I think it would be hard to have this happen today, but he was actually up there cutting deli meat with the slicer at 7 years old. So
he did it. He didn't hurt himself.
No,
I was worried that's where the story was going.
He didn't hurt himself, but he did have a good time, scaring everybody to death, slicing deli meat.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So it was always kind of for you understood that you would end up in the family business?
No. I mean, in the supermarket business, my dad always gave us a choice, and so I really wasn't interested in the supermarket business. But after we had sold the supermarket, I was much more interested in the real estate. And so that's when I decided to come back into the business, was to really join us as a part of the real estate company.
Well, it sounds like you've enjoyed a lot of success. Has it been ups and downs, do you think?
It's always ups and downs. And, people ask me, or younger people ask me, how do you become a success? All right. And I have to tell you that what you see on Instagram, what you see on Facebook, all these young kids that have lots of bling and lots of fancy stuff, real life is not like that. Real life is working really hard for 15 years, day after day, doing something you love and are good at to achieve success. Real life is being dedicated to a path and being consistently executing on that path over a long period of time. And that's, in my view anyway, what drives success for many of us.
Yeah, what you see on social media, it's just the ups without any of the downs, right? People aren't showing the hard work. And if they say there's not hard work, they're lying, or they just haven't. No, they're just lying.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there are always ups and downs. We've had terrible years. I mean, we've had years where we, didn't sign any leases. COVID was an interesting year for us.
Yeah.
And so during COVID, so we keep a lot of capital on hand, a lot of liquid capital on hand. We don't typically distribute all of our cash out to our investors, which is, my family, friends, and partners. So we usually keep a fair amount of capital on hand. So during COVID, we had enough capital with no income coming in to survive for about a year. And so we could pay all of our bills, all of our vendors. And so we told all of our vendors that, bill us in full, even if you're not at the shopping center, even if you believe that we're closed, go to the shopping center, do the services that we have contracted you for, pay us and bill us, and we will pay you in full. We paid all of our mortgage commitments in full, during that period of time. And, that's just the way we run our business. And so we're super conservative. And those are bad years, right? That was not fun, as many of us went through that period of time. It was difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult to navigate the ups and downs and the various demands upon our times. But we were, steadfast in our values and in how we felt and how we believed we should act with our friends, family, vendors, and all of our various constituents. And that helped us through down times, and it's helped us through good times too.
Well, Jeffrey, my big takeaway is work hard and success will come.
For me, yes, that I would agree that has been the case. Work hard, work smart, and be consistent.
Yeah, consistency is very important too. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Happy to be here, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again.
If you like this podcast, do me a favor, go into the app that you're listening to and give us a rating. Or even better, give us a little review, write just a sentence about what you like about the show. You can subscribe to Where We Buy on the iPhone podcast app, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or you can always find us on the web at wherewebuy.show. If you have a specific question about retail, shopping centers, or retail real estate, you can feel free to connect with me and send me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me by searching for James Cook, JLL. Our theme music is Run in the Night by the Good Lords under Creative Commons license. Excellent. All right, well, that's a wrap.